The red glow of the bedside clock seared 2:47 a.m. into my retinas, a time when only the lost or the broken are usually awake. Tonight, I was rapidly becoming both. My phone, clutched in a clammy hand, pulsed with a colder, bluer light. A credit card notification, $3,200. Serenity Springs Couples Retreat. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A couples retreat. Our couples retreat, presumably. Except I hadn't booked it. I tremble, not from the chill of the pre-dawn air leaking through the slightly ajar window, but from a deep, internal frost. Maya. It had to be her. But why? And why so much? My thumb, slick with a sudden sweat, fumbled for her email app on her unlocked phone. A trust I'd never violated. A trust that now felt like a cruel joke. The search bar was a gaping maw. Serenity Springs. There, confirmation email. Booked 2 days ago. For this coming weekend. My name was nowhere on it. Instead, a name I knew with a sickening lurch. Derek. Her ex-boyfriend. The one she'd sworn was just an old friend she was reconnecting with. The cold blue light of her phone screen felt like it was burning away layers of my denial. Each word in the confirmation. Tranquility Suite. Intimate Journey Package. 2 guests, Maya Vance and Derek Albright, was a fresh stab. My breath hitched. Instead of waking her, instead of the explosion of accusations that boiled in my gut, a strange, icy calm descended. I navigated to the screenshot function, my movements precise, detached, click, flash, another, click, flash, evidence, like a detective at a crime scene, the scene of my marriage's murder. Maya and I. 3 years married, 5 years together. A lifetime? Or so I'd thought. These past few months, she'd been different, distant, glued to her phone, quick with a vague smile and an excuse about catching up with old friends. Jenny, Sarah. Names I barely registered. Now, one name eclipsed them all. Derek. The D that had been lighting up her phone with late-night texts, the hushed phone calls she took in the other room, her laughter a little too bright, a little too forced when I'd ask who it was. Just catching up, she'd chirp, her eyes not quite meeting mine. She stirred beside me now, a soft sigh escaping her lips, blissfully unaware of the devastation unfurling in the dark. Her own phone, on her nightstand, buzzed softly, a brief, insistent vibration. I didn't need to look. I knew who it would be. The peace of her slumber was a grotesque counterpoint to the storm raging within me. My fingers flew across my own phone's screen, a desperate, reckless energy propelling me. Serenity Springs. Their website bloomed, all soothing greens and promises of reconnection. I scrolled, my vision blurring. The retreat started tomorrow. Tomorrow. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. Then, a glint of something else in the digital mire. Limited availability. Last-minute opening. Harmony Suite. The best suite, according to the description. A desperate, wild idea began to coalesce, pushing through the pain. I'm booking that suite. My finger hovered over the Reserve Now button. But not alone. Oh no, Maya wasn't going to be the only one with a surprise guest at this little romantic getaway. The steam from my morning coffee felt like a shroud, warm and cloying, mingling with the too sweet scent of Maya's vanilla perfume. She hummed as she applied her makeup, a picture of serene anticipation. For her spa weekend with Jenny. The lie was so effortless, so practiced. My heart didn't just pound, it thrashed like a trapped animal against my ribs as I forced a casual tone. So, Jenny's really looking forward to this, huh? Oh, absolutely. Maya beamed at my reflection in the mirror, her eyes sparkling. We both desperately need this. Just a couple of days to unplug and recharge, you know? She even had the audacity to show me a string of fake texts from Jenny, complete with spa emojis and exclamation points. The performance was flawless, chillingly so. But I had a secret of my own. While she was meticulously crafting her alibi, I'd been on the phone. "Serenity Springs," I'd said, my voice remarkably steady. "I'm calling about a last-minute booking for the Harmony Suite." That's when I first heard Dr. Sophia Chen's voice. It was like warm honey, smooth and professional, yet with an undercurrent of something else. Intrigue. When I'd vaguely alluded to wanting to surprise my wife, who was attending with a friend, there was a pause. Then, "This retreat has a 90% success rate for rebuilding trust, Mr. Vance. It can be quite transformative." The irony was a bitter pill. Maya was seeking to rebuild trust, all right, just not with me. Dr. Chen hadn't pried, hadn't asked why my wife was attending a couples retreat with someone else. She'd simply processed the booking, her voice a calm oasis in my churning world. There was a quality to it, a knowingness, that both unsettled and reassured me. Now Maya turned from the mirror, radiant. "I'm going to miss you terribly," she cooed, pulling me into a hug, her lips brushing my cheek. The vanilla scent was suffocating. I held her, my arms stiff, the lie a palpable thing between us. "You too," I managed, the words tasting like ash. I waited exactly 30 minutes after her little red Honda disappeared down the street. 30 minutes to let her get clear, to let the charade fully settle in her mind. 30 minutes for my own resolve to harden into something unbreakable. Then, I began to load my car. My overnight bag, a change of clothes, the file containing printouts of those screenshots. As I slammed the trunk shut, my phone rang. Caller ID, Serenity Springs. "Mr. Vance?" Dr. Chen's voice, that warm honey again. "Sophia Chen here. I was reviewing the guest list and your unique situation. I have a rather unorthodox proposition for you, if you're open to it." The gravel of the long driveway crunched under my tires, a sound that seemed to echo the grinding in my gut. Serenity Springs was nestled high in the Colorado mountains, an imposing structure of natural wood and stone, looking more like a billionaire's hideaway than a place for mending broken hearts. The air was sharp, with the scent of pine needles, crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the dirty secret I was harboring. I steeled myself as I pulled into the designated parking area. There it was, Maya's red Honda, parked innocuously between a Subaru and a pickup truck. Proof of life. Proof of lies. I'd upgraded to the Harmony Suite. The pinnacle of secluded luxury, the website had boasted. More importantly, its balcony directly overlooked the main courtyard, and, as I now saw, the entrance to most of the other suites. Strategic. A power move, even if only I knew it. Dr. Sophia Chen was waiting for me in the reception area, a calm smile on her face. She wasn't what I'd expected from her voice. Late 30s, perhaps. Striking, not in a flashy way, but with an understated elegance. She wore simple linen trousers and a soft knit sweater, her dark hair pulled back loosely. But it was her eyes that held me, a deep, knowing brown, like the forest floor, and they seemed to see far too much. They certainly weren't showing any surprise at my arrival, despite the unusual circumstances. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice as warm in person as it had been on the phone. "Welcome to Serenity Springs. I trust your drive was uneventful?" "As uneventful as it could be under the circumstances," I replied, meeting her gaze. A flicker of something, amusement, understanding, crossed her face. "Indeed. Your wife and Mr. Albright arrived about an hour ago. They're settling into the Tranquility Suite. The second best room." A small, petty part of me felt a grim satisfaction. "My proposition, Mr. Vance," she continued, leading me towards a quieter alcove, is this. Given your unique perspective on one of this weekend's couples, I was wondering if you might be willing to assist me, unofficially, of course, as a kind of research assistant, an observer. It could provide invaluable insights into the dynamics at play. I stared at her. This was not what I'd anticipated. I'd expected to be a rogue element, a ghost at their illicit feast. You want me to help you? Her eyebrows quirked. Let's just say I'm intrigued by situations where the stated narrative doesn't quite align with the underlying reality. And you, Mr. Vance, are in a prime position to observe that misalignment firsthand. Think of it as an anthropological study with very personal stakes. She smiled then, a genuine, disarming smile that crinkled the corners of those perceptive eyes. Besides, she added, her voice dropping conspiratorially, it gives you a legitimate reason to be present at all the workshops. Less dramatic than simply appearing, wouldn't you say? It was audacious. It was unorthodox. It was perfect. I accept, Dr. Chen. Sophia, please. Sophia. She handed me a key card. Harmony Suite, top floor, end of the hall, best view in the house. She paused. The first workshop begins in an hour, in the meditation hall. Perhaps you'd like to settle in first. Settle in. Right. I made my way to the Harmony Suite, my mind reeling. The suite was stunning. A crackling fireplace, a king-sized bed, and a sprawling balcony with panoramic views of the mountains. And, as promised, a clear view of the courtyard and the balcony of the Tranquility Suite. As if on cue, Maya and Derek stepped out onto their balcony. My breath caught. Maya was laughing, her head thrown back, the sound carrying faintly on the crisp air. Derek had his arm around her, his expression possessive. They looked happy. A fresh wave of betrayal, sharp and visceral, washed over me. I stood there, a silent observer, a ghost at my own wife's romantic getaway. Then, Derek did something that made the blood freeze in my veins. He reached into his pocket. He turned to Maya. He dropped to one knee. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, her laughter catching in her throat, replaced by what looked, even from this distance, like tears. The meditation hall smelled of sage and cedar, the air thick with the nervous energy of a dozen couples perched awkwardly on plush floor cushions. Soft, ambient music trickled from hidden speakers. It was all very zen, except for the storm brewing inside me. I followed Sophia into the room, taking a seat on a cushion slightly behind her, adopting the posture of a diligent assistant. Maya hadn't seen me yet. She was focused on Derek, her hand clutching his, her expression a mixture of flustered excitement and something else. Apprehension? Her eyes scanned the room, a polite, slightly strained smile on her face as she took in the other couples. Then, her gaze landed on me. The color drained from her face as if a tap had been opened. Her mouth fell agape. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, locked with mine. The carefully constructed serenity of the room seemed to shatter around us. Derek, sensing her sudden tension, followed her gaze. His easy smile faltered, replaced by a look of utter confusion, then dawning anger. The opening circle, where each couple was meant to introduce themselves and state their intention for the weekend, was about to get interesting. Sophia, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrents, began with her warm, welcoming spiel. When it was Maya and Derek's turn, Maya's voice was a strangled whisper. "Maya and Derek," she managed, her eyes darting between me and Sophia. "We're here to reconnect." Before Sophia could move on, Maya's composure snapped. "What the hell are you doing here, Marcus?" she hissed, her voice low but carrying in the suddenly silent room. All heads turned. Sophia intervened smoothly. "Ah, It seems we have a surprise connection. Marcus is here as my research assistant for the weekend, observing our processes, a valuable addition to our understanding of relationship dynamics. Her calm tone diffused some of the immediate tension, though the curiosity in the room was palpable. I offered a bland, polite smile. "Just here to learn," I said, my voice betraying none of the turmoil. Maya looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her. Derek, on the other hand, was sizing me up. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, with the broad shoulders of an athlete, his blonde hair artfully tousled. He had an easy, charming smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. There was a coolness there, a calculating glint. The first workshop exercise was titled Truth and Trust. Sophia explained, "Each couple will have an opportunity for one partner to share their deepest, most vulnerable truth, a secret, perhaps, that impacts the relationship. The other partner's role is simply to listen, without judgment." An uneasy murmur went through the room. Maya looked like she was going to be sick. Derek squirmed beside her, his charming facade cracking. When Sophia's gentle gaze landed on them, indicating it was their turn to begin, Maya hesitated, her eyes flicking towards me again. I met her gaze, unblinking. "Derek," she began, her voice trembling. The truth is, I'm still married." A collective gasp, quickly stifled, went around the room. Derek's face was a mask of shock. Genuine shock. He stared at Maya, his jaw slack. "Married? You told me. You said you were divorced, finalized months ago." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Maya buried her face in her hands. Sophia, ever the professional, navigated the explosive tension with remarkable skill. "Thank you, Maya, for your courage in sharing that truth. And Derek, thank you for your honest reaction. This is precisely what we are here to explore, the impact of withheld truths, the complexities of trust. This isn't a setback, it's the work itself." She made it sound like this was all part of the lesson plan. Maybe for her it was. The rest of the exercise was a blur of mumbled confessions and awkward silences from the other couples, the energy in the room irrevocably altered. Then Sophia announced, "For our next exercise, to explore trust from a different perspective, we're going to switch partners temporarily." A nervous ripple went through the group. My gaze met Sophia's. There was that knowing look again. She began pairing people off, seemingly at random, until only 4 of us were left. Me, Maya, Derek, and a nervous-looking woman named Carol, whose husband was now paired with someone else. Sophia smiled serenely. "Marcus, perhaps you and Maya could partner for this? And Derek, if you'd be so kind as to work with Carol?" Maya looked at me, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and trapped despair. Derek looked from Maya to Carol, then to me, his handsome face contorted in a scowl. This weekend was just getting started. Maya's hands were like blocks of ice, trembling violently as Sophia instructed the newly formed pairs to hold them for the Mirror of Trust exercise. Her glare was a physical force, promising retribution. But beneath the wounded fury, I caught fleeting glimpses of something else. Shame. Raw and undeniable. We were supposed to maintain eye contact and take turns sharing something we were grateful for in our quote-unquote relationship. The irony was a lead weight in my stomach. "I'll start," I said, my voice even, betraying none of the maelstrom inside. I looked directly into her eyes, forcing her to meet my gaze. "Maya, I am grateful for the 5 years we shared before things became complicated. I'm grateful for the laughter we once had." It was true, in a distant, painful way. Her turn. She struggled, her breath catching. Her eyes darted away, then back, a cornered animal. Her voice broke on the simple words. She couldn't say it. She couldn't find a single thing. The silence stretched, taut and agonizing. Meanwhile, Derek was a study in discomfort. Paired with Carol, a quiet woman who looked thoroughly overwhelmed, he kept shooting furtive, anxious glances towards Maya. He offered Carol curt, monosyllabic responses, his attention clearly elsewhere. He was not a man accustomed to not being the center of attention, especially Maya's. Sophia watched our foursome with that unnervingly calm, clinical interest, occasionally jotting notes on a small pad. Was this her research? Were we just fascinating specimens in her relationship laboratory? The tension finally became too much for Maya. "I can't do this," she suddenly cried, pulling her hands from mine as if burned. "This is a farce! Marcus, how could you? How did you even find out?" Her voice rose, shrill and accusatory. The other couples fell silent, their own awkward exercises forgotten. This was it, the moment I'd both dreaded and perversely anticipated. I took a slow breath. "I've known for weeks, Maya," I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the suddenly still room. "About Derek, about the texts, the late-night calls." Her face crumpled. "As for how your phone, it backs up to our shared iCloud, every message, every picture." The blood drained from her face, leaving it a sickly, chalky white. You spied on me?" "You gave me reason to, wouldn't you say?" A strangled sob escaped her. Then, the dam truly broke. "I booked this place to try and fix things," she wailed, tears streaming down her face, mascara leaving black tracks. "To figure things out with Derek, to see if what we had was real before I ended it with you. I didn't want to hurt you like this." The confession, so twisted in its logic, so self-serving, hung in the air. Before I could even process the sheer audacity of her statement, Derek interrupted, his voice laced with a new, sharper anger. "Fix things? You told me you were divorced, Maya. You said he was out of the picture completely, that this retreat was about us starting fresh." Maya stared at him aghast, her own pain momentarily forgotten in the face of his accusation. It was a tangled web of deceit, each lie tripping over the last. Sophia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the escalating chaos. "All right," she said, her tone firm but calm. "It seems we have several layers of miscommunication and unresolved issues here. I believe a private session is in order. Marcus, Maya, Derek, and Carol, perhaps you'd like to rejoin your husband. We'll take a short break for the rest of the group." As the other couples shuffled out, relieved to escape the vortex of our drama, Maya and Derek were already squaring off, arguing in hushed, angry whispers. "How could you lie to me like that?" Derek seethed. "You made me look like a fool!" Maya shot back. "You're the one who pressured me, telling me Marcus didn't care anymore." Sophia watched them for a moment, then turned to me, her expression unreadable. "My office, 10 minutes. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "You know, Mr. Vance, I specialize in complex relationship dynamics. Triangulation, deception, betrayal. It's all part of the human tapestry." A small, enigmatic smile played on her lips. "Some might even say I have a knack for bringing these things to the surface. You could say this confrontation was not entirely unexpected. In fact, one might even say it was facilitated." The private session room was a study in curated calm. A crackling fireplace, plush leather chairs that sighed with each subtle movement, and thick rugs that absorbed sound, creating an almost unnervingly intimate atmosphere. It felt less like an office and more like a stage set for emotional excavation. Sophia gestured for us to sit. Maya and Derek chose chairs on opposite sides of the fireplace, a chasm of unspoken accusations between them. I took a seat slightly apart, an observer still, despite being at the heart of the storm. Triangulated relationships, Sophia began, her voice calm and measured as she settled into her own chair, are inherently unstable. They often require not separation, but resolution of the underlying dynamics before any individual can move forward cleanly. She looked pointedly from Maya to Derek, then to me. Derek scoffed. Resolution? She lied to both of us. I'm out of here. He made to stand, a muscle twitching in his jaw. I wouldn't advise that, Derek, Sophia said, her tone still mild, but with an underlying thread of steel. There could be legal implications to consider when deception has financial and emotional consequences in the context of misrepresenting marital status to pursue a relationship. Derek froze, his eyes narrowing. Legal implications? What are you talking about? Just a thought, Sophia said smoothly, turning her attention back to Maya. I remained silent, watching the power dynamics shift and flow. Sophia caught my eye and gave a minuscule, almost imperceptible nod of approval. My calmness in the swirling chaos seemed to be a point of interest for her. Marcus was always working, Maya burst out, her voice thick with unshed tears and defiance. It was her turn to defend the indefensible. He was never present, never emotionally available. I was lonely. Derek saw me. He listened. Sophia let her speak, then gently interjected. Loneliness is a valid feeling, Maya, but choices made from that space often create more complexity, not less. Derek, she turned to him. Your turn? Why Maya? Why now, after all these years? Derek's bravado seemed to deflate. He slumped back in his chair. I never really got over her, he admitted, his voice surprisingly vulnerable. We had something special back then. After we broke up, well, I guess I've been trying to find it again, mostly with women who weren't available. Married women. The confession hung in the air, stark and pathetic. So this was his pattern. Sophia nodded slowly. Thank you for that honesty, Derek, Maya. She turned back, her gaze softening slightly. This pattern of seeking validation outside the primary relationship when intimacy becomes challenging, or when you feel unseen. Does that resonate with your past experiences? Maya looked down at her hands, twisting her rings. My father. He was always distant, she whispered. My mother always said I was too needy, too emotional. I guess when things get too real, too close, I run. Or I find someone who makes me feel exciting again, even if it's wrong. She looked up, her eyes filled with a dawning, painful understanding. Oh God, that's what I do, isn't it? She crumbled then, the carefully constructed walls of her justifications turning to dust. A strange thing happened then. Derek, watching Maya's breakdown, spoke quietly. She does that? Pushes you away if you get too close. Gets scared. He looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Shared experience? Resentment? She did it to me 5 years ago. I found myself nodding, a bizarre and uncomfortable alliance forming in that superheated room. Avoidance, I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. When things get tough, the solution is to avoid, not engage. Sophia seized the moment. All right. It's clear there are deep patterns at play here for everyone. Avoidance, seeking external validation. Perhaps a fear of true intimacy. Before any lasting decisions can be made, clarity is needed. And clarity often comes from solitude. She paused for effect. I'm assigning each of you 24 hours of complete solitude. No contact with each other, no phones, no distractions. Just yourselves and your thoughts. There are designated reflection cabins on the grounds. Solitude? Maya whispered, looking terrified. But This isn't a punishment, Maya, Sophia said gently. It's preparation. Tomorrow evening we will hold a final ceremony, a ceremony of choice. My mind raced. A final choice between whom? What did that even mean? As Sophia dismissed us, instructing us to retrieve only essential items for our solitary confinement, Maya rushed to my side. Marcus, please, she begged, her eyes desperate. Can we just talk for a few minutes? Alone? Before this? Before I could answer, Sophia placed a light hand on my arm. Marcus, a word in my office first, if you please. Maya, Derek, the staff will show you to your cabins. Her tone brooked no argument. As Maya and Derek were led away, looking dazed and resentful, Sophia guided me back towards her private office. The fireplace in the main lounge was now a bed of glowing embers. She closed the door behind us, the click of the latch unnervingly final. Marcus, she said, her professional mask softening into something more personal, more vulnerable. There's something I need to confess. The scent of jasmine tea, delicate and calming, rose in a fragrant steam between us. Sophia poured from an antique, celadon green porcelain set, her movements graceful and precise. Her private office was a contrast to the rest of the retreat's rustic chic. Bookshelves overflowed, not with self-help guides, but with classic literature, philosophy, and poetry. Tucked among the volumes were a few framed photographs, a younger Sophia with an older couple, likely her parents, another of her laughing with a group of women on a beach, and two, smaller, slightly faded, of her with two different men. Wedding photos. She'd been divorced, twice. This architect of relationship repair had her own ruins. She handed me a cup, her fingers brushing mine for a fleeting second. Marcus, she began, her gaze direct, unwavering. I need to be transparent with you. Since our first phone call, when you booked the Harmony Suite, I've felt a connection, an attraction. I sipped the tea, its warmth a small anchor in the sudden turbulence of her words. An attraction. To me, the husband of her client, the cuckold in this bizarre mountain drama. Sophia, I started, but she held up a hand. Please, let me finish. Professionally, this is complex, unorthodox even. I pride myself on my ethical boundaries, but I also pride myself on my honesty. And the truth is, your calmness, your composure in the face of this, she gestured vaguely, encompassing the whole sordid mess. It's remarkable. And yes, attractive. She took a slow sip of her own tea. I started this work, this retreat, after my second marriage ended. Betrayal. The classic messy kind. A shadow passed over her expressive eyes. It nearly destroyed me. But it also remade me. I learned that betrayal rarely creates the cracks in a relationship. More often, it simply reveals the ones that were already there, hidden beneath the surface. She looked at me pointedly. A truth I suspect you might be discovering for yourself. Her honesty was disarming, unsettling. I've never seen anyone handle the initial shock of such a profound betrayal with the kind of quiet strength you've shown, she admitted, a note of something akin to admiration in her voice. Most people erupt or shatter. You observe and strategize. I finally found my voice. Sophia, I appreciate your honesty, and yes, I acknowledge the connection. It would be disingenuous to deny it. A beat of silence. But given everything, I gestured again, this time towards the door, towards Maya and Derek and the wreckage of my marriage. Boundaries are probably wise. For now. A small smile touched her lips at my "for now." Understood, Marcus, completely. We sat in a comfortable silence for a moment, the only sound the gentle clinking of porcelain as she refilled our cups. Love and attachment, she mused, as if picking up an old conversation. They're not the same, are they? We often mistake one for the other. Attachment can feel like love, especially when it's threatened. But love, true love, I believe, wants the best for the other, even if that best doesn't include you. Her words resonated, disturbingly accurate. Had I loved Maya? Or had I been attached to the idea of us, the life we'd built, the future I'd envisioned? Tomorrow's ceremony, I shifted, needing to return to safer, more professional ground. The final choice. What exactly does that entail? It's designed to bring clarity and facilitate a conscious decision, she explained. There are typically 3 possible outcomes. 1, the couple chooses to recommit, to begin the hard work of rebuilding, armed with new insights. 2, they choose to separate, but to do so with respect, understanding, and a sense of conscious completion. 3, she paused. Rarely, an individual chooses to leave both their current partner and the affair partner to strike out entirely on their own, realizing their patterns require solitary work before they can be healthy in any relationship. Before I could ask more, a movement outside the frosted glass of her office window caught my eye. A figure, hesitating. Maya. She'd broken the solitude rule. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked desperate. Sophia sighed softly. It seems the need for connection, however fraught, is a powerful one. Just as I was about to stand, to see what Maya wanted, my phone, which Sophia had allowed me to keep for emergencies, buzzed on the table. A text from the retreat's front desk manager, whom Sophia had apparently looped into our unorthodox arrangement. Mr. Vance, urgent. Mrs. Vance is at her car. Mr. Albright is with her. They appear to be packing their bags. They look like they're leaving. Maya and Derek. Leaving. Together. So much for solitude and reflection. Gravel sprayed like shrapnel as Maya's red Honda fishtailed out of the parking lot, spitting stones against the polished wood of the main lodge. Derek's face, pale and panicked, was visible for a fleeting second in the passenger seat before they careened onto the narrow mountain access road. So much for Maya's desperate plea to talk. So much for Derek's supposed disgust at her lies. They were running. Together. They won't get far, Sophia said, surprisingly calm beside me as we burst out of her office. She's in no state to drive, especially not on these roads. My car, I said, already sprinting towards where I'd parked. Sophia was surprisingly quick, keeping pace with me, her earlier linen trousers and knit sweater somehow not hindering her agile movements. The crisp mountain air burned in my lungs, each gasp a ragged tear. The chase was surreal. Maya was driving recklessly, her emotional state translating into wild overcorrections and erratic speeds. The little red Honda, usually a symbol of her sensible nature, was now a weapon of panicked flight. Winding mountain roads, sheer drops on one side, unyielding rock face on the other. It was terrifying. She's likely overwhelmed by shame and fear, Sophia said from the passenger seat of my car, her voice a steady anchor as I navigated the treacherous curves, keeping a safe but persistent distance. Derek is probably feeding that fear, painting you as the villain, himself as the rescuer. It's a classic manipulator's tactic: isolate and control. Her insight, even at 70 miles per hour on a hairpin turn, was unnervingly accurate. A sudden, pragmatic thought cut through my adrenaline. I'm calling the state police, I announced, fumbling for my phone, reporting an erratic driver, for her safety. It was true. Beneath the anger, the betrayal, a stubborn ember of concern still glowed. Or maybe it was just another power move, wresting control back. Sophia merely nodded, her eyes fixed on the red car ahead. We rounded a sharp bend, one notorious for its sudden dip and loose gravel near a scenic overlook. Maya took it too fast. I saw the brake lights flash, the sickening slide of tires losing purchase. The Honda slewed sideways. Then, with a horrible crunch of metal and snapping undergrowth, it slid off the road, nosing down into the thick brush, coming to rest against a sturdy pine. Not a catastrophic crash, but they were stuck. Well and truly stuck. I pulled over, my heart hammering. We scrambled down the short, steep embankment. Maya was slumped over the wheel, sobbing hysterically. Derek was fumbling with his seatbelt, his face ashen. When Maya saw me, she didn't look angry or defiant. She just looked broken. "Marcus," she wept. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." It was Derek who cracked first. Not with remorse, but with a desperate, self-serving confession. "It was me," he blurted out, his eyes wide with panic as he finally unbuckled himself and practically fell out of the car. "I told her you were having an affair, Marcus. I said you'd been seeing someone for months, that you were planning to leave her. I photoshopped texts. I made it look real. I wanted her back so badly." Maya stared at him, her sobs catching in her throat. The raw pain in her eyes slowly morphed into a horrified, dawning comprehension. She was seeing him, really seeing him, for the very first time. The charming rescuer, the understanding confidant, was a manipulative liar. Derek, realizing his confession had only damned him further in Maya's eyes, began to panic in earnest. "Maya, baby, I did it for us, because I love you." She turned on him then, a new, cold fury in her voice. "Love me! You lied to me, you manipulated me, you made me destroy everything." I watched the scene unfold, a strange detachment settling over me. This wasn't my fight anymore. When the initial shock subsided, and after confirming neither of them was seriously injured, I did the only practical thing. I got the tow rope from my trunk. With a bit of effort and Sophia's surprisingly practical assistance guiding the wheels, we managed to get the Honda back onto the tarmac. No drama, no, I told you so. Just a quiet, efficient extraction. Back at Serenity Springs, the atmosphere was subdued. Derek, stripped of his charm and his lies, chose to call a cab and leave immediately. He didn't even look at Maya as he went. Good riddance. Maya, looking small and lost, turned to Sophia. Can I still stay? I need to face this." Sophia's expression was compassionate. "Of course, Maya. The solitude cabins are still available." Then she looked at me. "Marcus, perhaps you and Maya could still complete the final ceremony this evening? Not for the reasons you initially came, perhaps, but for a different kind of closure." I looked at Maya, truly looked at her. The anger was gone, replaced by a profound weariness and a flicker of something like pity. "Okay," I said. Sophia smiled gently. "Good, because this final ceremony, Marcus, Maya, it isn't about reconciliation. It's about conscious uncoupling." The sunset was bleeding gold and crimson across the mountain peaks as we gathered in the stone circle. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the faintest hint of wood smoke from a distant chimney. It felt pregnant with possibility, with the quiet dignity of endings. The other couples had long since departed, their own dramas played out, their own choices made. It was just Maya, Sophia, and me. Sophia had arranged a few simple elements: 3 flickering candles on a low stone altar, a small ceremonial bowl, and sheaves of parchment with pens. "The purpose of this ceremony," she began, her voice soft in the twilight, "is not to assign blame, nor is it to force a reconciliation that isn't authentic. It is to acknowledge what was, what is, and what will be. It's about releasing each other with grace, understanding, and a conscious completion of your journey as partners. She guided us first to write. Write what you need to release, she instructed. Grievances, regrets, unspoken words. Then write what you take responsibility for in the ending of this chapter. Maya's hand trembled as she wrote, tears silently tracing paths down her cheeks. I found my own words flowing with a surprising ease, a sense of inevitability, of a story reaching its natural, albeit painful, conclusion. When we were done, Sophia invited Maya to speak first. She stood clutching her parchment, her voice thick with emotion but clear. Marcus, she began, taking a deep, shuddering breath. I take full and complete responsibility for my actions, for the lies, for the betrayal, for the pain I've caused you. There are no excuses, no justifications. I was lost, and I was selfish, and I broke the most sacred vows we made. I will live with that regret for the rest of my life. I am so profoundly, deeply sorry. She read her letter of accountability, each word a testament to her shattered illusions and newfound, painful self-awareness. Then it was my turn. Maya, I said, my own voice steadier than I'd expected. I acknowledge my part in the distance that grew between us. The long hours at work, the times I wasn't emotionally present, the ways I perhaps took our connection for granted. For that, I am sorry. Sophia then spoke of forgiveness. Forgiveness, she said, her gaze encompassing us both, is not for the other person. It's for yourselves. It's about releasing the burden of anger and resentment, so that you can both move forward unencumbered. She guided us to read our lists of grievances, then, one by one, to light them from the central candle and place them in the ceremonial bowl, watching the paper curl and blacken, the words turning to ash and smoke, drifting up into the darkening sky. It was surprisingly cathartic. And now, Sophia said, we acknowledge the completion. She handed us each a beautiful paper lantern and a lighter. As you release these lanterns, release your marriage. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the lessons learned, for the journey shared, however it has ended. We lit our lanterns. Mine rose steadily, a bright beacon against the velvet canvas of the night. Maya's wobbled for a moment, then caught a gentle updraft and followed mine, 2 points of light diverging, heading for different horizons. Practical matters followed, surprisingly devoid of rancor. We discussed the logistics of divorce with a strange, newfound mutual respect. Lawyers would be involved, of course, but the animosity, the need to wound, had dissipated, burned away in the ceremonial fire. I think, Maya said quietly, a watery smile on her face, we might actually be better as friends than we ever were as spouses. The thought, astonishingly, didn't sting. It felt true. I'm going to get serious help, she vowed, looking at Sophia. Therapy. Before I even think about dating anyone new, I need to understand my patterns. It was the most hopeful thing I'd heard her say. Sophia, ever practical, even offered, and if you need a mediator for co-parenting Gus, I'm happy to help. Gus, our golden retriever, our only child? We both managed a small laugh. As the ceremony concluded, Maya turned to me. She gave me a hug, a genuine, heartfelt embrace. Thank you, Marcus, she whispered, her voice thick. For handling this the way you did. You didn't deserve any of it. Then she pulled back, looked me in the eyes, and added something that caught me completely off guard. She's good for you, you know. Sophia, don't mess it up. She winked, a ghost of her old mischievous self, then turned and walked towards her car, a figure of quiet resolution heading into the night. And then there were two. Sophia, Chen, and I standing alone under a canopy of 1,000,000 indifferent stars. The mountain air was cold, but I didn't feel it. The scent of pine and distant wood smoke hung heavy in the crisp night air, the stars blazing with an almost violent brilliance in the clear mountain sky. Maya's taillights disappeared around a bend in the long driveway, a final, peaceful departure. Closure, for her at least, and surprisingly, for me too. Sophia and I walked the retreat grounds in a comfortable silence. The adrenaline of the chase, the emotional intensity of the ceremony had ebbed away, leaving a quiet hum in its wake. She'd changed from her earlier linen trousers into dark jeans and a thicker, cable-knit sweater, the collar pulled up slightly against the encroaching chill. "My work here is winding down," she said eventually, her breath misting in the air as we paused by a rustic wooden bench overlooking the valley. "My contract with Serenity Springs ends in 2 months. I'm moving on, starting fresh somewhere else." I looked at her, the starlight catching the curve of her cheek. "Oh?" "Mm-hmm." She smiled faintly. "Time for a new chapter, for me as well." She met my gaze, and the unspoken attraction that had simmered beneath the surface all weekend was suddenly there, clear and acknowledged, yet unhurried. "We've certainly navigated some unconventional terrain together, Marcus." "That's one way to put it," I agreed, a smile tugging at my own lips. I marveled at the strange calm that had settled over me. Just 48 hours ago, I'd been a man shattered by betrayal, consumed by a cold fury. Now I felt lighter. "Your composure," Sophia said, as if reading my thoughts. "It truly was remarkable. But I suspect it wasn't just strength of character, though you have that in abundance." Her perceptive eyes studied me. "I think on some level you already knew your marriage was over, didn't you? Long before you saw that credit card alert." Her insight was, as usual, unnervingly accurate. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Yes," I admitted, the truth of it settling in me with a quiet click. "I think I'd been emotionally divorced for months, maybe even a year. We were just going through the motions. The affair, Derek, it was just the catalyst, the messy, painful catalyst that forced the inevitable." We talked for a long time then, not about Maya or Derek, but about ourselves, about past hurts, about lessons learned, about the winding paths that had led us both to this strange, starlit night in the Colorado mountains. Before we headed back towards the main lodge, the first hint of dawn already painting the eastern sky, we exchanged contact information. As friends. For now. Later that morning, as we were clearing the remnants of the final ceremony from the stone circle, the melted candle wax, the charred remains of released grievances, a shared, unexpected humor bubbled up. "You know," I said, picking up a stray piece of parchment, "for a weekend that started with my wife running off with her ex, this has been surprisingly therapeutic." Sophia laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound that echoed in the crisp morning air. "Life has a strange way of delivering its lessons, doesn't it?" She paused, then looked at me, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You know, Marcus, you have a natural aptitude for this, for listening, for seeing beneath the surface, for staying calm in the storm. Serenity Springs is always looking for good facilitators, assistants." The thought, surprisingly, wasn't unwelcome. My corporate job, with its endless spreadsheets and soul-crushing meetings, suddenly felt 1,000,000 miles away, a life belonging to someone else. Helping others navigate their own emotional minefields. There was a pull there, a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. 6 months later. The sunlight streamed through the large window of our new office, illuminating the faint specks of dust dancing in the air. Transitions Retreat Center, the freshly painted sign on the door read. Sophia was on the phone, her voice warm and reassuring, talking to a prospective client. I was reviewing the intake forms for our first official weekend. Maya was doing well, truly well. She was in intensive therapy, had moved into a new apartment, and was, by all accounts, rediscovering herself, single and unencumbered. She'd even taken up pottery, and Gus, our shared golden retriever, was happily splitting his time between her place and ours. We'd found that unexpected friendship, a quiet, respectful camaraderie. Derek, from what little we'd heard, had continued his pattern, leaving a trail of minor heartbreaks and accumulating a rather impressive collection of restraining orders. Some people never learned. Sophia and we were learning. Slowly, carefully, building something real, something honest, from the ashes of our respective pasts. Our retreat center wasn't about grand gestures or quick fixes. It was about holding space for people in the messy middle, in the painful transitions, from betrayal to understanding, from breakdown to breakthrough. Sophia hung up the phone, a small, satisfied smile on her face. They're booked. A couple. She just discovered his affair. Sound familiar? I leaned back in my chair, a reciprocal smile spreading across my face. Full circle. Indeed it does. We looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between us. The work was hard. It was emotionally taxing. But it was good. We were ready. Ready to help others navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal, not with bitterness or revenge, but with grace, with compassion, and with the profound, hard-won knowledge that sometimes the best, most beautiful revenge against the darkness is to build something extraordinary in its place. The morning sun felt like a promise.